This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
At least 2 dead, many wounded in blast in Afghanistan's Jalalabad. Pentagon says attack in Kabul last month was a mistake. And Tunisia's activists call for an end to military trials of civilians. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers. Here are more stories making headlines. Guinea refuses to allow deposed president to leave the country. And Egypt negotiates with U.S. pharmaceutical company Moderna to produce COVID-19 vaccine locally. We begin our bulletin in Afghanistan, where at least 2 people are reported to have been killed in a series of bombs which exploded in Jalalabad. At least 20 people were wounded in those blasts. Meanwhile, in the capital, Kabul, several more people were wounded by a magnetic bomb which had been attached to their vehicle. The blasts are the country's first deadly attacks since the United States withdrew. Marilai Abbasin has more.
After 17 days of full-fledged security all over Afghanistan, finally it's broke down by 4 explosions in Kabul, in Jalalabad, the capital city of eastern Nangarhar province, where according to the health officials, 2 dead bodies and 19 injured were transferred to the central hospital of Jalalabad city, while some of the injured are in critical health situation. According to the sources in Jalalabad, the 4 explosions took place this afternoon in Jalalabad city. Some of them were IED or the roadside bombs, and some of them are magnetic bombs, which are not cleared which of them were magnetic or the IEDs. But according to the sources, a ranger of the Taliban is also targeted by the unknown group, which is potentially be the ISKP or Daesh, an only remaining extremist group which is already alarming the security situation and challenging the Taliban administration in Afghanistan. Another magnetic bomb exploded this morning in Kabul, which 2 people were injured, and the minor injury was reported in the 13th police district of Kabul city. So this is the beginning of new era of security challenges to the Taliban interim government, and yet much more to become. The Taliban haven't spoke about the incidents to the media, and the reporters were not allowed, particularly in Jalalabad city, to see what's going on in the areas where the explosions have taken place.
Meanwhile, the United States says that last month's deadly drone strike near the Kabul airport was a tragic mistake. An investigation has revealed that the bombing killed 10 civilians and not terrorists plotting an attack. CGTN's Nathan King reports.
Zamari Ahmadi was a long-time U.S. aid worker in Afghanistan, but that was his last day, August 29th. He and 9 other members of his extended family killed in a U.S. drone strike. 7 children, the youngest being 2. Basically, at the time, the U.S. defended their decision. They said they'd been monitoring his car for around 8 hours, and they thought there was the transfer of explosives, and a second explosion after they hit with a drone strike. They defended that up until the last, but unfortunately for the Pentagon is that there was a New York Times investigation as well as other media as well. And essentially what they said was this, that it looked like it was Ahmadi and his family that had been killed and a horrible mistake that they made. Well, the Pentagon have admitted that mistake. Mark Money, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, wrote in a statement saying this: in a dynamic, high-threat environment, the commanders on the ground had appropriate authority and had reasonable certainty that the target was valid. But after a deeper post-strike analysis, our conclusion is that innocent civilians were killed. This is a horrible tragedy of war, and it's heart-wrenching, and we are committed to be fully transparent about this incident. Of course, this incident, as the Pentagon called it, came 3 days after the attack on Kabul airport, which of course killed 140 civilians and 13 US Marines. This was one of the last acts of the US as they left Kabul, one of the many drone strikes over 20 years, which killed uncounted thousands of people, not always with the New York Times investigation. Nathan King, CGTN, outside the White House.
We head over to North Africa now, and in Tunisia, activists there are calling on the country's president to end the trials of civilians in military courts. This follows the recent arrest of a Tunisian MP who's now being tried by a military tribunal. The Tunisian president has pledged to respect rights, freedoms, and the rule of law, as well as the constitution. Reporting from the capital, Tunis, here's Adnan Chouachi.
Civil society activists have called for the immediate release of Tunisian MP Yassine Ayari and the drop-in of military prosecution against him. They also want the prosecution of civilians in military courts stopped. Ayari has been held since July 28th for his Facebook posts criticizing the president and the army.
My son is being tried by a military court, yet he's a civilian and an elected MP. He started a hunger strike. Yassine made 3 posts on his social media page. He did not delete any because freedom of expression is supposed to be guaranteed in Tunisia.
Human rights activists have denounced what they described as arbitrary restrictions on freedom of movement in Tunisia. The Interior Ministry has since the 25th of July issued house arrest decisions against MPs, judges, businessmen and senior officials.
Many decisions made by the president are unconstitutional, like the border control measures which ban travel of tens of thousands of Tunisians, as well as imposing house arrest on people without a court decision. We fear that this could turn into a state policy.
On a visit to the Tunis-Carthage International Airport, President Kais Saied reiterated his commitment to guarantee freedom of movement. Saied also stressed that he does not intend to curtail this freedom.
If my intention was really to prevent Tunisians from traveling abroad or returning home, I would have closed the borders. Air, sea and land borders remained open as usual since July 25th. I did not resort to this measure because I believe in law enforcement.
The head of state says that he has neither interfered with civilian and military courts, nor has he ever ordered the arrest, detention or trial of any Tunisian citizen. President Kais Saied said that the exceptional measures he took on July 25th are based on Article 80 of the Constitution. They are aimed at protecting the state and its institutions while dealing with the political, economic, social and health crises. Adnan Chouachi, CGTN, Tunis.
Egyptian Health Ministry officials say they are in negotiations with U.S. pharmaceutical company Moderna to begin manufacturing its COVID-19 vaccines domestically in the future. If agreed upon, the Moderna vaccine would be produced in Egypt by state-owned vaccine manufacturing firm Vulture. Reporting from Cairo, here's Adel Amrouhi.
The Egyptian Health Ministry says it's negotiating with another international pharmaceutical firm to produce its COVID-19 vaccines domestically. Health Minister Hala Zaid is leading talks with the United States pharmaceutical giant Moderna. The government is pushing to have its vaccination manufacturing firm Vulture to lead the production of the first COVID-19 vaccine using messenger ribonucleic acid or mRNA technology, which will then become the second jab to be produced locally in Egypt after China's Sinovac.
COVAX initiative failed to achieve the targets to the 92 countries to deliver the vaccines. So because we lag a lot of vaccines quantities in terms of contractual agreements, we need to have local manufacturing. First step was Sinovac, and it was a very good and important initiative that we can actually satisfy all the Egyptian needs towards 100 million shots that we can manufacture. Second is we need to diversify the contractual agreements. And talking with Moderna for technology transfer is a very important step, so we can have an mRNA vaccines here in Egypt.
The health minister held a virtual meeting with officials from U.S. pharmaceutical firm Moderna to discuss manufacturing its COVID-19 vaccine in Egypt. So far, they are still in the negotiations phase. The health minister invited the company to visit the Vaxera facility and offered to dedicate a production line for Moderna.
Egypt's state-owned firm Vaxera has recently established a massive vaccine production facility that is capable of producing 3 million doses daily. It is currently used to produce the Chinese Sinovac COVID-19 jab and aims to churn out 40 million doses before the year ends. Zaid invited Moderna to send over its experts to inspect that factory and complete their capacity assessment for domestic production.
Once the capacity assessment is in place, we'll be ready for technology transfer. Usually technology transfer, it takes from 6 months to 12 months, but we can expedite and make it faster to 3 months or 4 months if the plant is already ready. If so, and everything worked as perfect as we wish, we are talking about the first quarter of 2022, for example, that the plant will be ready to manufacture.
The WHO has been pushing for the transfer of technology to Africa for the manufacture of Moderna's mRNA shot. But this week it reported lack of progress in talks with the US pharmaceutical. Last year, Moderna said it would waive patents related to its vaccine during the pandemic. Only 3% of Africa's population has so far been vaccinated, while most developed countries have inoculated at least 50% of their population. The African continent is still facing many challenges to achieve the WHO's 10% inoculation target by the end of September. Realizing the need for supplies for vaccines in Africa and the potential it has in production, Egypt wants to become the vaccination hub to supply the continent with these essential jabs. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Time for a short break. Here's what's coming up when we return. DR Congo artists showcase elaborate costumes at an art festival. Animal prey poisoning leads to a decline in Uganda's vulture populations.
The East China Sea, home of dream seekers, where China's hub for reform and opening up connects with the maritime Silk Road. Whether it's exploring the busiest seaport and trade zone, or witnessing how locals strive for a better life. Join CGTN's adventure, Tides of Change Part 2. A journey enchanted by a dynamic ocean and beyond.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. Well, a group of artists in the Democratic Republic of Congo have been showcasing elaborate costumes created from rubbish and other discarded material to highlight the numerous problems that people living in the capital Kinshasa face. CGTN's Chris Ochamuringa caught up with them and sent us this report.
Bubbling with creativity, Congolese artists display outfits made from rubbish collected from different parts of the DRC's capital, Kinshasa. From plastics to broken mirrors and electric cables, they have all been turned into costumes. And in typical Kinshasa style, the artists hit the streets to flaunt their costumes. But it's not just for show.
I designed this costume to awaken the conscience of our leaders to the problem of power blackouts in Kinshasa. We have had many cases of women being sexually abused by men because of a lack of electricity.
Other artists chose to highlight the dangers of poor waste disposal and the injustices committed by Belgian officials during the colonial period.
I designed this costume to raise awareness about the suffering that our great-grandfathers experienced when they were forced to collect rubber by Belgian colonialists. I'm also highlighting pollution in factories and the automobile industry.
This sculpture represents our ancestors, and the message they have for all of us is that we should recycle the rubbish on our streets and transform it into products that will have some importance in our lives.
Eddie Ekete is an artist who founded this festival known as Keen Art. He's been organizing workshops to introduce young people to different art forms. This year, his mission was to advocate for a cleaner city.
Our environment in Kinshasa is very dirty, so we decided to organize this art festival to educate the public about the hazards of poor waste disposal. We want to have a clean city in the future. That's why we have taken our unique artworks to the streets.
These young Congolese artists are looking forward to a brighter future, but their country's dark past, characterized by conflicts and political instability, is still a stumbling block to their careers.
These artists have found a subtle way of drawing the world's attention to the problems plaguing the Democratic Republic of Congo through their creative costumes. Their advocacy for a cleaner city and the provision of better social services has attracted many people to their workplace in Kinshasa's Molokai village, an area renowned for producing great artists and musicians. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Vulture populations are on the decline in Uganda as they struggle with a loss of habitat and poisoning. It's a situation that mirrors a wider trend across Africa. Leon Senyanga reports.
Vultures circling above Kampala is a common sight. On the ground, they scavenge for food in the city's garbage. These vultures are among several hundred that can be found in Uganda. This is a favorite spot for scavenging birds. Just meters away is the city abattoir, where cows and other animals are slaughtered for their meat. Hooded vultures are a common sight here, looking for any leftovers they can find. And they pose no threat, at least according to the butchers that work around here.
We are never really bothered by these birds. They stay here like any other domestic birds.
The hooded vulture is one of 11 species known to exist in Africa. In the wild, their survival is increasingly under threat. The main cause is poisoning.
Masai Mara, they have lost more than 90% of the vultures there because people are baiting the animals in order to kill the prey, and the vultures come and feed on them and they die. In Southern Africa, the issue is also poisoning, but more poisoning because of agrochemicals.
According to conservationists, over 75% of the world's vultures are slipping towards extinction. Stepping up education and community programs about the role vultures play in the ecosystem could help deal with the looming crisis.
If we don't do very much, if we don't do anything now, we can lose all the birds in less than 20 years. So that's what it means, and that's how critical it is that we need to start acting now in order to save these important species.
Safeguarding their habitat, experts say, could prove to be their best chance of survival. Otherwise, the big, bold, flesh-eating bird could soon be no more. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
The sports update coming up after the break, including Blitzbox debutant Sean Williams looks to make his mark as World Rugby 7 Series kicks off this weekend.
It's just taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia,
Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Time now for the sports news. The 2021 World 7 Series kicks off in Canada this weekend, with South Africa aiming to make amends for their disappointing showing in Tokyo. The Blitzboks three-time World Series champions will be looking to the future for the opening tournament in Vancouver, where debutant Sean Williams is aiming to make his mark. CGTN CS Duplessis reports.
The long wait for the South African national sevens team to get back to playing on the World 7 Series circuit is finally over, and now coach Neil Powell will be looking to the next generation of players to shine for the Rainbow Nation. One such player is Sean Williams, who up until last year wasn't sure where his rugby future lay.
In my final year of my studies, COVID happened, and then I was fortunate to get opportunity at the sevens, because we all know a lot of guys don't get opportunities, and mine was a very huge step in my career, coming from varsity rugby to professional setup.
Williams, who played left wing for the Lions provincial 15-man team while still a student in Johannesburg, has blossomed at the National Sevens Academy in Stellenbosch, and his efforts have been rewarded with a national call-up.
I only had 2 tournaments, and normally it takes like 5 to 6 tournaments for academy player to get his opportunity. And for me, my opportunity to play for the Blitzboks is now in Vancouver. I'm quite happy with that, and hard work's been done.
The men in green and gold will not face the likes of New Zealand, Fiji, Australia, Samoa and Argentina, as they can't travel to Canada due to travel restrictions. But it does not take away from the opportunity that lies ahead for Williams to emulate his heroes.
I remember sitting back at home or in Johannesburg, watching them play and come back against a world-class team like Fiji, and then ended up winning that thing. And that's special to me, and I hope one day I'll also be in that position to come back and give my all.
The disappointment of the Tokyo Olympic Games will still be fresh in the memory of the Springbok Sevens coach and his band of young, talented chargers. But they will need to quickly shift focus to their next challenge and use the unique opportunity in Canada to get a head start on their traditional rivals and build on the foundation laid by the generation of players before them. CS Duplessis, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Kenyan sprinter Ferdinand Omanyala clocked 9.76 seconds to break the African record in the 100 meters at the Kip Keino Classic held in Nairobi on Saturday. Omanyala's record was the 5th time this year that he'd broken the Kenyan national record. At the Classic, he finished second to American Trayvon Bromwell, who clocked 9.75 seconds. The 25-year-old Kenyan shot to fame after reaching the semifinals of the 100 meters race at the Olympics. He's now eyeing more great performances for next year.
This will sink in after some time, but at least I have some time to think about it because there's no more race again. So I'll go and think about it, but it's a great thing. African record, now the world record is not too far. Yeah.
Toronto Raptors president Masai Ujiri and his Giants of Africa Foundation will invest in 100 basketball courts across Africa. The initiative is part of the foundation's commitment to create opportunity for youth through sport. The foundation unveiled its first 2 courts in Kenya this week. CGTN's Muhammad Abubakar brings us that report.
And have a lot of fun.
The Giants of Africa Foundation is back in the continent. This week, it announced its commitment to build 100 basketball courts in underprivileged communities across Africa. Led by its founder and president of NBA side Toronto Raptors, Masai Ujiri, the foundation unveiled its first complete court in Nairobi. It was part of the 5-country African tour that will see 10 courts opened for use under the Built Within initiative.
We decided to build 10 of them to start with, but I also wanted to challenge, right? You know, like, why can't we get to a big number? And so Built Within started for us, and it started, we feel, like a little movement where infrastructure is important to the continent. It's very, very important for us to give the youth opportunity for a place to come and play, but a place for them to come and be safe and play basketball and enjoy it.
Ujiri's foundation has been investing in the future of sports in Africa through various training camps over the last 2 decades. In recent years, however, it has become clear that the continent needs more facilities at grassroots level to create long-term opportunity for growth.
And Africa has always been blessed with talent. This was the missing piece. And so when there's talent and then this accessibility, the possibilities are endless, and this is giving the kids an opportunity. And we go back to not just impacting the kids' life, but their families, their communities, their countries, and Africa as a whole. Right? So you're making examples and you're creating young dreamers that can make whatever of their future.
I am from this neighborhood, and all I can say is thank you for this new court. We are really happy about this. It will help us a lot. At least now we have a space to play, and it will also help us to stay away from bad company. We will now be able to utilize our free time by playing here.
A second court will be unveiled in the northern region of Kenya before 8 more are opened across Tanzania, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire and Nigeria. Mohammed Abubakar, CGTN.
Well, that's it for this edition of Africa Live. Remember that you can send your feedback to the contacts on the screen and follow us on digital media platforms. From me, Hannah Viviers, and the rest of the Africa Live team, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next time.